Hello and welcome to the Wednesday night Grumpy Sound Guy Show. I am your host, Mr. J.R. Everhart from CLP Audio and Staging LLC. You can find us at clpaudio.com, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of happy stuff. So today we're going to talk about, I am directly talking about something I was asked to talk about. It's kind of a hard subject. It's a tough subject to talk about. We have discussed sort of kind of this subject several times in the past from different angles. Today we're just going to hit it head on, and that is, what do you do when the client refuses to pay you and just screws you? And how do you handle that? I had a follower hit me up and said, could you please talk about this? I'd like to know how to move forward in a professional manner. So stick around. It's going to be a good one today. You do not want to miss a second of today's show. Hey guys, if I could just have a moment of your time to talk to you about this channel. 49.8% of you guys watching this right now is not subscribed to this channel. Will you please hit that subscription button? It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel on the public side here. And then that gives us tools and resources and for my marketing team to be able to do what we need to do to get this content out to people who really enjoy this sort of thing. The other thing is, if you're super digging this and you'd like a deeper look into my world, then subscribe to the paid side of the YouTube channel. You can join for about the cost of a cup of coffee a month, and then I do vlogs over there. I post content that never goes public, and I let you into my world. I let you into the CLP audio world, and I let you see what our day-to-day life looks like. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. And welcome back. So we are going to talk about, I can't see where this would really go super long today, but I had a follower, like I said in the intro, who said, would you please talk about how to handle the client not paying you? And it was a club level event. I think, I'm just going to assume this because this will eliminate a whole nother part of this conversation. I'm just going to assume that any of you guys that are working for more than, $1,200, $1,500 are doing contracts on all your gigs. If you're not, you should. But let's face it, 99% of the club level stuff where you're making $800 to $1,200 is usually going through your agent. Your agent may have a contract with them. In that case, you may get some protection that way. This guy that was reaching out to me did not have an agent. He was booking direct. That's the risk you take booking direct, is you have no one that has your back. You're independent. You're on your own. That was the case with this guy who was asking the question. Listen, man, I can remember being independent and booking my band direct to clubs with no contracts for years and years and years. And I can only remember one time when a bar owner was trying to short me money. And I had to get very stern with him and communicate to him that he was going to pay what he promised to pay us, one way or the other. He got the point really quickly, and this was not a place of any kind of sophistication. Let me put it that way. It was just kind of a dirty old dive bar, West Virginia bar, place that was a ton of fun to play because their people just loved us, and we used to sell the place out all the time. But the bar owner, especially if he got drinking, he was the kind of guy that would want you to play an extra hour for no extra money, you know, and things like that. And we obviously weren't going to do that, you know. So that particular night, he had asked us to play an extra hour. We had plenty of material to do that. I said, yeah, sure. I said, it's going to cost you another $200. And he said, yep, no problem, do it. Because, I mean, the place was sold out. They were freaking drinking like crazy. This was back in the days when I was still drinking, and our band drank. I mean, we drank. When I say we drank, people. We would drink a bar out of Crown Royal. We were Crown Royal guys. And I mean, they would stock up knowing that before we got there, and they would still run out when we got done with them. So it wasn't like they weren't making money behind the bar, because they most certainly were. And they were charging, I don't know, $5 or $10 at the door to get in. And it wasn't a big place, but we had 150, 200 people in there or something or other. And everybody was on 11. You know what I'm saying? It was one of those kind of crowds. And it was a great night. And I'm sitting there, this guy has had a questionable past, but I'm like, there's no reason why he shouldn't pay us this. You know, he's making plenty of money tonight. So when it come time to get paid, you know, he wanted to short us that $200. And I just said, you know, man, I said, that's not going to happen. I said, you know, you agreed to this. Your manager was standing right there. She heard you say it. Come on, let's just get real here. Let's not play any games. You've had a few drinks. Everybody's had a good time. We sold the place out. If you'd like us to come back and continue to sell your bar out, you're going to have to make good on what you promised us. And he got the point. Paid us the money, and that was it. That was the only time I can ever remember just blatantly someone trying to screw us. But if it happens, and we just recently in the Baltimore area had an acoustic guy who I don't know, and I was not friends with, but a bunch of my friends from the scene had been sharing his post about a bar that had shorted him and just refused to pay him. For whatever reason, I guess he told the guy he was going to pay him the next day or something like that. Maybe the guy lived close to the venue. I don't know all the specifics of that situation, but the reality of it is, you know, the guy quit answering the phone and was nowhere to be found and just did not pay the guy. The guy got screwed. And I think the guy handled the situation, you know, mostly right. Because you only got a couple options here. You know what I'm saying? You're either going to go on social media and blast the guy to the moon and, you know, rally all your musician friends around you, and which is what this guy didn't blast him to the moon, but all his friends that were sharing his post was blasting the guy to the moon. You know, it was just very unprofessional, you know. And I think the guy handled it well. He just stated the facts. You know, he didn't say anything derogatory about the guy, didn't call him any names or anything like that. He just said, I just want everyone to know this happened to me. It's very unprofessional, and I would hate to see any of my friends have to deal with the situation that I'm dealing with. So I'm just putting this out there to inform the music community that this took place. That was about as professional as you could get in calling someone out online. Excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold here with the weather change. I don't know what happened to summer. Last week it was like 80 degrees here. This week it's like, you know, 40 and 50 degrees. Last night it got down to 27. Like, it's kicking my rear end. Plus allergies. Oh yeah, we gotta love all that. So yeah, I tend to feel like, you know, when you go online and you do that sort of thing, you're kind of stirring poop. And when you stir poop, it stinks. It kind of makes you look some kind of way. I don't know. I thought the guy really handled himself well about it. Now, some of the people who shared the post, that really got into a world of calling people names and, you know, I think kind of looked rough on the situation. The guy deserves it. Now, look, I'm not saying that it's not justified, okay? The guy deserves every bit of bad canceled, you know, culture stuff that was going on in some of those posts. I'm not saying he doesn't, but being a man of integrity and being someone who tries to live a life of integrity and virtue, I tend to pick up the phone and call some people that I love and respect in the business and just let them know what has happened than to jump on social media and turn it into a public fiasco. Rarely have I ever seen that pressure from social media get the guy paid. Maybe it has here or there. I don't know. I don't know of anyone where that's worked for them. Typically, it just turns into a big old drama mess, and it's a he said, she said thing then, and the club, if they'll even acknowledge it, which if they're smart, they won't, but if the club acknowledges it, maybe they have a reason why, they couldn't pay them. I don't know what that reason would be. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Maybe they had an agreed upon price and then the artist assumed it was going to change because he played a couple extra songs or something and he got shorted money. But that wasn't this case. This case was the guy got paid nothing, And listen, let's just face it. We all talk to each other, okay? We do, in this business. It's a very small business and there's only a handful of people who hold the keys to the kingdom. So it's not going to take long for this guy to end up on the blackball list and bands not want to play there, or other acoustic acts not want to play there. So you don't really have to go on to social media and create this poop storm that could very well backfire on you. Because there's some people in this world who look at that as being distasteful, and they kind of scratch their head and they're like, man, I don't, what if one of my waitresses treated the guy poorly or something? Is he going to jump on social media and trash my business because of one of my employees being an idiot? Some bar owners think that. So it's a touchy situation, guys. It's not the sort of thing that you can just come out and just be hardlined about and act like everything's everything. You got to really pick and choose your battles in this business. Yeah. Maybe you had an agreed upon thing to play for exposure and the artist thought that was not the case and there was a miscommunication. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just hesitate to do anything on social media anymore, anywhere online, that's going to stir up a huge poop storm of drama. Now, look, I'm all about starting conversations online. I think conversations are healthy for our business. I think talking about the elephant in the room is healthy for our business. My whole channel and content is built around those ideas. But I do not believe in throwing mud at specific people. I do not believe in being someone who wants to cancel someone else because I don't agree with their business philosophy or I don't agree with how they conduct themselves inside the business. There's a whole bunch of people in this business that run their companies differently than me, and I'm okay with that. It's not my circus, not my monkey, it's not my problem. And I stay in my lane, and I do what's expected of me. If one of my competitors calls me to go cover one of their events, and I do well at that event, and then people want to rebook me, I always point them back to my competitor that hired me. I stay in my lane. It's common courtesy. I don't go around handing out my cards on somebody else's job. I don't think that's right, But I'm different, and I've been told that many times. I have booking agents that call me exclusively because I'm that guy, because I'm a man of integrity and I don't play those stupid games. Let's put all the cards on the table and, see what the numbers are, see what the gig parameters are, and if everyone agrees to it, then okay. And when we get there, if it's harder than what we thought it was going to be, well, hey, look, tough titty. Suck it up, buttercup. That's just the business. That's not the agent's fault. It's not the client's fault. It's just the way this business works. You're regularly dealing with people who think they know how to do our job and don't. So there's going to be a level of this, no matter how hard you try, where you're not going to get everything that you really want, or the gig is not going to flow as smoothly as you really would like it to, because the people you're dealing with are ignorant to what it takes to really do what we do, even though they think they can do it. But I digress. All those things can be foundational things for you to decide whether or not you even want to do business with a client. We talked about that last week, I think it was, talking about problem clients. Go back and watch that video, But when someone just blatantly screws you, I'm definitely going to have something to say about that to the client face to face. But I'm also the guy that will confront that client one-on-one. I'm not trying to make a public spectacle of it. I will be the guy who will pick up the phone and will call all my agent buddies and in private conversations and the bands that I'm friends with, and I will let them know that there's an issue at this club and you really need to have a contract before you go in there and play. Look, like I said, earlier, 99% of these clubs are not doing contracts for $800 or $1,000 or even $1,200 gigs, okay? It's just a bunch of bull butter, unless they're working with an agent. And then an agent is just doing a broad sweeping contract usually with them, just to hold them to some level of accountability. If you did have a contract with them and they didn't pay you, well, then you can seek legal action. But, there comes a point with that where it's like, is it worth it to pay a lawyer $3,000 to take somebody to court for, $1,000, gig you got stiffed on? You could always turn them into collections. That doesn't cost you anything. I know a couple different agents that use that tactic regularly on bands that refuse to pay their commissions. They just turn them into collections, and let collections hound them and call them 20 times a day and, all that kind of stuff. And then the collections company makes, whatever percentage they make for chasing you down, and, you get your money at some point, and then it goes against your credit record because the collection agency will, report that to the credit bureau. So yeah, in my world, if you screw me, I'm never going to be, I say this all the time, I'm never going to be a nice guy to work with or in a good mood if you're trying to screw me, okay? If all the cards on the table and we have open conversation and communication and you can answer a freaking message when I message you, look, I don't expect you to drop everything in your world and answer my text, but within 3 or 4 hours, there's no reason why you can't answer a text message, or at least that afternoon or something like that, or first thing the next morning, you can answer a text message or an email. If you can't communicate with me, brother, that's red flag city right there. Yeah, red flag city. The flags are going up the pole, and I am already starting to back off from doing your event. I'm just not interested, because there's too many other clients that are honest and are trying to do things right. Look, I understand that the budgets are tight. We're all dealing with that, Everybody in this business is dealing with tight budgets. The bands, the clubs, the production companies, everyone, So it is what it is. Most bands are production poor. That's the world I live in. I am established to a level with my company to where I am basically only working for like the top 15 or 20% of the bands that have enough of a budget to be able to afford to bring a guy of my caliber into their gigs. That has all its own challenges, especially in the wintertime, And I mean, we'll be flexible with a regular client. We don't have any issue with that. If one of my regular clients that books us, 20 times a year comes back and is like, hey, look, I need a favor. Hey, man, no problem. I got no problem with that. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I love my clients, I love working with them. Most of the time we end up forging personal relationships, and we end up being friends for life, even after the music thing is over. Because look, guys, let's face it. This stuff ain't going to last forever. Everything has an expiration date. I'll be 53 this year, and I'm already looking at, I got 10 years, and retirement is in my scope of things that's going to happen in my life. So I'm trying to make the most of these last 10 years before I start dialing things back and say, okay, what am I going to continue to do throughout my retirement years? Because I do plan on working during my retirement years. But, you know, that's all part of it, man. That's all part of it. Is it really worth your integrity to get online and to start throwing mud? Even though it's justified. I'm not judging you, okay? I'm not judging you guys. I know that it's justified. And I know the guy deserves every bit of bad publicity he gets. I understand that. I understand that. But unforgiveness is like drinking poison and thinking that it's going to hurt the other person. I keep that kind of stuff in my mind. You know, my integrity and my professionalism is more important to me than anything. And I miss it sometimes. I mean, I don't need any help screwing up, okay? There's sometimes I just absolutely miss it. Sometimes my temper gets in the way. Sometimes I just get irritated with the situation, you know, and frustrated, just like everybody else. I'm human. I ain't got it all together, you know what I mean? And I screw up. I have burnt some bridges I wish I had back. I've burnt some bridges in my life. Hey, man, that's all part of the learning process. And those lessons are expensive, and those lessons are hard to learn. But I like to think that at this stage of the game, I'm making less of those mistakes and, you know, trying to focus more on the client's experience with COP audio. But look, dude, if I start to sense, and my spidey sense goes off really sensitive, you know, goes off real early in the process, I start seeing those red flags go up, I'm just going to start bailing out on the gig, dude. You know, I'm not investing a bunch of time because I've already been used that way more times than I can count. And at this stage of my life, at this stage of my career, I think I've paid my dues that way. And I would just rather let some young guy jump through all those hoops and maybe or maybe not make any money with that guy. You know, because let's face it, we can get on social media and tell the world that this guy's a crook. There's still going to be somebody who will go take his work. There's still going to be somebody that's going to go play his venue because they're friggin' idiots. Or they just don't believe what you're saying, or maybe they're friends with him, or maybe they have a track record with him of success. Maybe there was just something about you the guy didn't like, or maybe that was the guy just genuinely didn't have the money. I don't know. I mean, there's so many parameters to these situations that it's hard to just nail it down and say it's this, this, or this. And the situation I was talking about on Facebook, it looked like the guy just blatantly screwed him. And the guy deserves, I mean, there's consequences and repercussions to everything we do in this world. If you run around and talk smack about people, there's going to be consequences and repercussions to that to some degree. If you screw people and refuse to pay people and that sort of thing, there's consequences and repercussions. Don't bellyache and complain when, you know, people blackball your business. Cancel culture is very real. It still exists. And the music business is quick to jump on a cancel culture tsunami, you know, against somebody that they deem dishonest or has screwed multiple bands or fill in the blank, you know. I know in my world, I find myself walking on eggshells a lot of times and, you know, trying to really inventory what I'm going to talk about online so that I don't get canceled because of some of the opinions that I bring to the table. It's dude, the grumpy sound guy thing is a two-edged sword, you know. On one side of it, you know, it has, you know, validated me on every level, which I really wasn't looking for that. I already know who I am and believe in my skill set, and my clients understand all that, you know. But it definitely has validated me on a different level and made me the authority of a lot of things. But on the other side of it, it's also, you know, ticked off a bunch of people. Because I talk about the things everyone else is afraid to talk about. I try to discuss it in a healthy manner and not be toxic about it. But at the same time, it's like, are we all just going to live in denial and act like these things aren't part of our world? The elephant in the room's got to be addressed at some point or another. And that's kind of what I do. So, love you guys. I hope this content blessed you in some way. I hope it gave you, I forget who the follower was that specifically asked me to talk about this, but I hope you're watching this, and I hope this gave you the information that you need to move forward and the best way you see fit. This is your career, this is your story, this is your journey. So you're the one that has to make the correct decisions to get from point A to point B in your journey in the music business. Just be careful, because it's so hard, getting new clients and getting new venues to play in, but it's so easy to lose those connections and burn those bridges. Love you guys. I'll see you next week.